Just
Well,
be
I'd like
careful.
to take kind of what you're sharing about this, dangerous climate of people who are willing to speak out. And, we're in a room full of people who are speaking out and who are fighting for justice for women. I'd love to hear from, anyone else that's on the panel about anything that you've experienced in terms of when you go to speak up and you try to make change and make the laws, what kind of pushback are you seeing? And, what does that look like for you? Danielle, I see you came off mute. Go ahead if you have something to add.
Yeah, we get a fair amount of pushback. We certainly get a lot of, attacks on social media, of course. But we also, I mean, we've gone with bodyguards when we go to testify in the legislature sometimes. We, have been in situations where we're testifying and people are showing us their weapons. Not as I don't know, they're not shooting us, but it's a veiled threat. Um, Kathy mentioned, we had an advocate who came to one of the rallies for Kayden's Law in Pennsylvania, and she was, I think, sort of newly coming out in public and talking about her situation. She had two little kids. I think they were 5 and 7 at the time, and she was in the address confidentiality program, so her abuser couldn't find where she lived. So that's how dangerous he was. And yet, family court had ordered some shared custody. So she had to send her little children to him on the weekends, and they were very scared to go. And when the children went to the visitation, the father, who had, brutally abused her many times and threatened to kill her, he would ask the children questions about where they lived. What store do you live by? Or do you live by a park? Or what's your name of your school? So he was sort of questioning the children. And the little girl, who was only 5, eventually succumbed, of course, not on purpose. She's just a little child. And she let some information slip that was enough for him to figure out where they were living. And this had happened at the visit that was just before this rally that we were holding for Kayden. And the mom was there, and she was telling me about this. She said, I'm enthusiastic about the advocacy that's happening and the protections that Kayden's Law is, coming to Pennsylvania. I want to help. I want to be vocal, but I'm also scared. But I'm also, I feel less isolated, and I want to get involved. But then she was telling me the story, and she said, my daughter was shaking, and she was saying, "I'm so sorry, Mom, I didn't mean to tell him." And she said, "I'm scared, but I'm hopeful." And then that night, she was murdered in her house. And, you know, a different man who knew the father was convicted for it. Um,
It was a reaction to a marijuana cookie, an adverse
that's
reaction. Adverse reactions are not murder. It's like
that's
an
what
itch
they
or a
concluded.
rash,
That's what
okay?
they concluded. It's
This was
suspicious.
the article. I was like, oh wow. So now that if you take marijuana cookies and you murder someone and like it's okay, it's just an ad. It's like an adverse reaction to a medicine or anything is like I got an itch, I got a rash. Not murder. Not
Yeah.
murder.
And so what happened afterwards, of course, once the productive mom was killed horrifically, um, the children were in limbo. And, up until she was killed, they would only go to him supervised. That's how dangerous he was. And after she was murdered, he had full parental rights. And so he took both the children. Her family tried to keep them, but they didn't have, such legal standing as the paternal father, the biological father. And so the children had to go and live with him. We don't know if he did kill the mother or arranged to have her killed, but it's quite possible. He had threatened to kill her many times, and he was seeking to find her address. He had just found it out. And the only reason he found it out is because the family court had ordered this forced contact, you know, and then he was coercing the children. So I think a lot of times family courts don't think about these implications. They're just thinking very baseline, okay, dad needs some custody time. But the level of risk
Yeah.
that it creates for the survivors is so incredibly high, sometimes resulting in death. And these things are preventable. If we actually did prioritize children's safety above everything else.